A lot of moving and shaking in the ACC recruiting this week as Clemson firmly cements itself as the top class in the conference. Florida State, though, not far behind it, too, with 11 total commits. North Carolina and Pitt, both with 14 in the cycle, and Wake with the most of any team in the ACC. Pretty impressive. Here's the bottom half, though, of the conference as it pertains to recruiting. At Georgia Tech, new head coach Brent Key, 8 players in the class. And the Virginias, both with 7. Why am I rolling through the ACC recruiting rankings? Well, because it's time to give these classes some grades. So to help us do just that, let's welcome in national recruiting analyst Cooper Petagna. Coop, we're about to talk a lot of Clemson with Anna Adams in the next segment. So we're going to skip to Florida State. They're second in the ACC, but a top 10 team nationally. We know Mike Norvell loves him some portal, but that does not mean that he is ignoring recruiting. So what grade do you give the Noles?
I'm going to give Mike Norvell and the Seminoles an A. I mean, they've done a really good job. Listen, they've done all their work under Mike Norvell, really in the transfer portal, but they finished with a flurry last year. 5-star Hakeem Williams ended up in the mix for the Seminoles. They finished top 20 in the country at number 16. Right now, they're at number 9. That's where you want to be if you're a Florida State fan. At the top of that class, guys like Landon Thomas, 5-star tight end, the only tight end in the top 32, and a guy that they flipped from, guess who? The University of Georgia, back-to-back national champion. So that's a big one for Mike Norvell and company. But the real reason I love this class, Luke Kromenhoek, especially with the Elite 11 finals coming up next week in Los Angeles, this is one of those names to know. He committed in the spring of last year, 2022, and this was a guy who just kept climbing up our board, now in the top 64. And I think a guy who's got a chance, he's got the tools at the end of the day really to make a push for 5-star status. You add a couple names in like Cameron Davis, Luane McCoy. You got to love where Florida State is. You mentioned the transfer portal as well. They finished number 6 there last year in 2023. So you add that in there. This is kind of the combination right now for Mike Norvell that seems to be working.
Yeah, great response, obviously, with the new coaching changes in the state of Florida, and for the Seminoles to be recruiting the way they are is obviously super impressive. Let's move on to North Carolina, Coop, and this is a program who finished outside the top 25 in the 2023 recruiting rankings. They are now inside the top 15. What are your impressions so far of what the Tar Heels are building, and who are some standouts in Mack Brown's recruiting class?
Well, I gave them a B. This might be a little bit surprising if you're a Tar Heels fan, but as Emily alluded to, they already have 14 commitments, right? That's tied for second in the ACC with Pittsburgh, only behind Wake Forest, and they've done a really quality job. But if you look back to 2022 in Mack Brown, North Carolina, they finished number 11. They had 9 players that were top 247 signees. Last year, when they finished 28th, they didn't have any. Right now, as it stands in 2024, they don't have any either. So I think that top end of the roster building, that's where North Carolina needs to improve. Outside of that, they've done a really good job. Guys like Andrew Rosinski from the state of Georgia, a big 6'6", 275-pound plus tackle. He's got a background in track and field. You know we love that. Can work up to the second level. Really good athlete. I think that's a really good gift for the Tar Heels, as well as 3-star safety Jaden Patterson out of Mill Creek. This is a guy who can play corner. He can play safety. He's got some ability in the return game as well. So North Carolina, they keep doing what they're doing. I think they got a little meat left on the bone, and I think that's really important for Mack Brown. They got to take advantage of Drake May, who seems to be like he's going to be one of the first names to be called in the NFL draft next year. I know we're already talking about that already. So listen, they're in an okay spot. I think they need to close. They got some time to do it.
I just want to say, this is why we're doing grades in June, because you might look at a class and you go, oh, wow, top 15. They have 14 total players. Everything is good at UNC, but you take just a little step further and you pick up the magnifying glass and you realize that it's the quality that they're still looking for. So thank you for describing that so well. A top 10 class in 2023 for Miami, but as it sits now, the Canes just outside the top 25 with just 9 commitments. It is early, as I just said, but the expectations are, of course, high for Mario Cristobal. So what grade do you give the U?
I'm going to give Miami a B, and I might be taking it easy. I went back and forth between a B and a B minus, and right now Miami, listen, they brought Mario Cristobal in to do one thing, and that's recruit top-end talent. He certainly did that last year at Miami. There were double digits in top 247 signees. They finished inside the top 10 as well. Right now, they only have one top 247 commitment in receiver Chance Robinson out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Good news for them. It's a good one. That being said, Miami, where they stand right now, if my math is correct, they have over 40 official visitors left in the month of June. So I just think they're starting to get going. Mario Cristobal, he's known as a closer, drinks a lot of coffee, right? Coffee's for closers. So I think they're just starting to get going. But Chance Robinson, the guy that I alluded to earlier, really like him a lot. Big physical receiver. I expect Miami to get him involved in the red zone. They needed a guy like that after Robbie Washington and Nathaniel Joseph. They needed to add some size in that receiver room. Another guy, three-star quarterback Judd Anderson. I got to see him in Atlanta this spring, and a guy that has some developmental upside. They took Emory Williams last year as well. So that's a pretty interesting storyline if you're a Miami fan. Listen, they seem to be rolling the dice a little bit at the quarterback position, which could lend to after Tyler Van Dyke. Maybe they're in the portal, maybe not, but we'll see. Something to follow there.
All right, let's take a look at all of Cooper's grades here. Cooper, I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not sure if you caught it, that you're a tough grader. So I want to see the rest of those grades here. Actually, I think I'm just going to ask you another question before we get to those grades. There was one team that really stood out to you more than any, so I'm not going to tell the people the grades that you gave everyone. So first, Louisville was a team apparently that stood out to you. You gave them a B+. Will you explain that?
Yeah, I like Louisville a lot, and people might look at this and say, wait, how'd you get a B+? Well, they got 8 commitments, but right now, average rating per commit, they're number 2 in the ACC, top 3 in the ACC, right there with Florida State and Clemson. And they've done a really good job, especially in the state of Florida, which Louisville has a reputation to recruit well in that area. But really, TJ Capers, that's a guy that I look at, 4-star edge out of the state of Florida, a guy that can play on ball, off ball as well, an explosive, dynamic playmaker. Another guy that I like out of the state of Michigan, 3-star tight end Dylan Mesman, and this is a guy who plays with CJ Carr. We'll be calling his name a lot in Los Angeles, but big physical tight end. He's got a basketball background as well. Guys like Isaac Brown, as well as Deuce Adams, the quarterback. I think Jeff Brom's done a really good job, even though it's early. I like what Louisville's done, and I think you got to give him some credit.
Cooper, North Carolina State is a team that's used to being in the middle of the pack. No pun intended, or maybe it was intended. I don't know.
Let's take it.
But this is a program that right now is sitting 12th in the ACC, and they're outside the top 50 nationally. So how would you grade out this class so far? Who are some prospects that maybe that fan base should be optimistic about?
I gave them a C+. They only have 5 players committed right now. And you mentioned it. I mean, NC State is really not known as this juggernaut recruiting program, but I think they're capable of so much more. I think 18, 19, they finished right outside the top 25. Dave Doran's been there since 2013. They haven't had a top 25 recruiting finish under Dave Doran, but this is a team that's certainly capable of recruiting better. Good thing for NC State, the guys that they have in the boat, guys, you look at like Cedric Bailey from the state of Florida, big 6'6" signal caller out of Chaminade Madonna. He's the guy responsible to getting the ball to guys like Jeremiah Smith, number 1 receiver in the country, as well as Josiah Trader. This is a guy with a lot of developmental upside. I can see him climbing the board. 3-star cornerback Assad Brown out of the state of Virginia, 6 foot, 180 pounds, plays corner. I think he can project to safety, plays a little nickel. I love the position versatility there. So I like NC State. Listen, they have a formula. They are not really going to be worried about where they end up at the end of the day when it comes to recruiting rankings. They've been doing this for a while. Dave Doran has a recipe. I just think this is a team that can recruit better than what they've shown.
Okay, so C+ was the lowest score we've seen so far. Let's go ahead and show the rest of your grades. We showed a few teams, but you're not getting off the hook showing all of these teams here. Okay, so a lot of B's, a lot of room for improvement. I wonder if maybe there's some extra credit that's out there for some of these teams. It is hard to look past Boston College there with a D, but again, it is June, so there is definitely time. If you don't like your grade, if you're a school and you're watching right now and you don't like your grade, there is time. There's lots of time to make it better. But Cooper, thank you so much for making this show better and being on it. We appreciate it. If you have not already, come on, what are you doing? You got to be listening to the 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast. It is fantastic. It is starring Andrew Ivins and Cooper Petagna. New episodes dropping every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So easy to find. It is wherever you consume your podcasts.